Hello and welcome to Michael's Sleep Well, your place for stories that take you beyond the ordinary into worlds of mystery and wonder. Tonight, I want to share with you The Lighthouse Between Worlds, a tale of loss, courage, and the secret light that bridges two realities. Follow Ivy as she discovers a hidden lighthouse glowing in the fog, meeting a mysterious girl in white and uncovering a destiny that connects her to a world beyond our own. Are you ready to step through the mist and find the light that shouldn't be? Let's begin. The fog rolled in heavy that evening, thick and white like a curtain drawn over the edge of the world. Ivy stood on the back porch of their new cottage, arms wrapped around herself as the wind whispered in her ears. The sea stretched out endlessly before her, restless and dark. The village of Windmere slept quietly behind her, its houses scattered like secrets across the cliffs. Her father was inside unpacking boxes, trying to pretend this place could ever feel like home. It couldn't. Not after her mother. Not after the funeral, the silence, the year of watching her dad fade into someone she barely recognized. Ivy closed her eyes. She breathed in the salt, the chill, the ache. Then she saw it, a faint flicker in the fog. Her eyes flew open. There, far out near the edge of the cliffs, a light spun in slow, wide circles, pale, steady, unmistakably from a lighthouse. But that was impossible. Her father had told her the Windmere Lighthouse was shut down 10 years ago. No light, no keeper, no way. She stepped off the porch and into the mist. Her boots crunched on gravel. The air grew colder the closer she got to the cliff's edge. The fog wrapped around her like a living thing. And still, the light turned. Closer now, sweeping across the rocks, illuminating a narrow path she'd never seen before, lined with ancient stones and thorny brush, leading to a place no one had mentioned. A shape loomed ahead, tall, weathered and waiting. The lighthouse. Real, whole, and glowing. A low hum vibrated in her bones as the beam passed over her. For a second, she couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Whispers curled through the air, too soft to understand. And in the light, for just a heartbeat, Ivy saw something else. A woman's silhouette standing in the tower's window, watching her. The moment Ivy blinked, the figure vanished. No flicker, no shadow slipping away, just gone as if the lighthouse itself had imagined her. She stood frozen, heart thudding against her ribs. Was it the fog playing tricks on her? Or the light continued its silent rotation, casting long silver beams over the rocks and sea, then disappearing again into the mist. She stepped forward, drawn like a moth. The lighthouse door was old, weathered grey with rusted hinges. A heavy padlock hung from it, snapped open. No one was supposed to be here. Ivy hesitated. Her instincts screamed turn around, but something deeper, something stubborn, pushed her hand forward. She pushed the door open with a loud creak. Inside, the air was colder still. It smelled of iron, salt, and something ancient, like pages of a book that hadn't been opened in decades. Wooden stairs spiraled up into the tower's darkness. "Hello," she called softly. No answer. Just the slow, steady hum. the same vibration she'd felt outside, running through the floor and up the walls like the heartbeat of a sleeping beast. She took the first step, then another. Each creak echoed like thunder in the hollow shaft of the tower. Ivy's fingers trailed along the stone as she climbed. The beam of light passed again outside, spilling through a high window and painting the stairwell in silver. When she reached the top, she paused. The lantern room was circular, enclosed in dusty glass. The giant rotating lens in the center gleamed with impossible brightness. There was no visible power source, no wires, no heat, and no one there. But in the dust, just beside the lantern, were footprints. Bare feet, small, recent. Her breath caught in her throat. She knelt and touched the print, warm. She looked out through the glass, hoping for a sign, a boat, a shadow, anything, but all she saw was fog. Until the beam swung east. For a moment, the fog broke. Beyond the sea, Ivy saw something impossible. Another coastline, towering cliffs, a forest lit by purple light, giant birds wheeling through the sky. And on the opposite cliff stood another lighthouse, mirroring hers. The light vanished as the beam moved on. The fog swallowed the vision. Gone. Her pulse raced. She gripped the railing. "What was that?" she whispered. Behind her, the wind shifted. The door creaked at the base of the stairs. Someone else was in the lighthouse. Ivy froze. The creak of the lighthouse door below echoed up the stairwell again, soft, cautious, like someone trying not to be heard. She backed away from the lantern, careful not to make a sound. Footsteps, just one set, bare feet on the wooden stairs, slow, deliberate. Ivy held her breath. Then a voice, barely a whisper. "You shouldn't be here." It was a girl's voice, young, strange in tone, like it was being carried from far away through thick water. "Who's there?" Ivy called out, trying to sound brave. The footsteps stopped. No reply. She glanced around the lantern room. Nowhere to hide. Nowhere to run except back down the stairs toward whoever was coming. And then, just as suddenly as they'd started, the footsteps retreated. Down the stairs, fading. Ivy moved quickly, heart pounding in her ears. She reached the stairwell and looked down. Empty. She descended step by step, scanning every shadow. The air was thick with the same strange hum as before, but now there was something else beneath it, a faint melody, like a music box playing underwater. When she reached the bottom floor, the lighthouse door hung open, the fog curling in like fingers. She stepped outside, expecting to find the girl nearby. But the shore was empty. Only footprints remained in the sand, leading back toward the cliffs. And something else. Carved into the side of the lighthouse, where the stone was rough and weathered, were 6 words. When the light spins, don't follow. Ivy stared at the message. It hadn't been there when she arrived. The beam from the tower swept past again, lighting up the cliffs, and for a fraction of a second, Ivy saw the same girl from the window. She stood at the edge of the path, barefoot, wearing a thin white dress that fluttered in the breeze. Her eyes were pale, almost glowing in the dark, and she was watching Ivy. Then she turned and disappeared into the fog. Back at the cottage, Ivy didn't tell her father what she saw. He wouldn't believe her. He barely talked to her since the move. Ever since Mom died, he lived inside his own head, buried in work, distracted, detached. She lay awake for hours that night, staring at the ceiling. The image of the girl in white burned into her thoughts. Was she a ghost? A guardian? A warning? Or someone trapped? At 3:12 a.m., the lighthouse light swept across the cottage window again. Ivy rose and looked out. The beam stopped mid-spin, paused, as if it were staring straight at her. Then, for the first time, Ivy heard it, a voice inside her head, not spoken aloud. Come back before the tide turns. Then the light moved on. The house went still. And Ivy knew the lighthouse wasn't just glowing. It was calling. By dawn, Ivy had made up her mind. She packed a flashlight, notebook, and the old compass from her mother's things. The air outside was crisp and silent. Her father still slept, oblivious. The lighthouse beam was gone now, the tower cloaked in fog as though nothing had happened. But Ivy knew better. She followed the cliff path again, tracing the footprints she had seen the night before, though now they were mostly washed away by the morning dew. The path felt different in daylight, less eerie, more expectant. When she reached the lighthouse, the door was shut again. But this time, it wasn't locked. Inside, the air was still damp and cold. Dust floated in the shafts of weak light sneaking through the high windows. Ivy climbed the stairs quietly, listening for any sign of the girl or the hum. Neither came. The lantern room was just as she'd left it. The glass walls ringed the great lens, which now stood still and dark. Ivy pressed her hand to the glass. No warmth, no magic. But then something caught her eye. A seam. In the floor beneath the lantern, barely visible, but definitely there. A rectangular outline. A trap door. She crouched and pulled. It groaned as it opened, revealing a ladder descending into a stone shaft beneath the tower. Heart pounding, Ivy climbed down. The air grew warmer the farther she went. The hum returned, not mechanical, but natural, like it belonged to the stones themselves. At the bottom of the shaft was a hallway lit by glowing moss and odd, pulsing crystals. The stone walls here were etched with symbols she couldn't read, spirals, stars, eyes. And then she saw it, a door. Not a modern one, but ancient, made of dark wood and black iron, carved with a lighthouse emblem at its center. Ivy reached out. The moment her fingers touched the iron, a deep voice echoed through the chamber. One door opens, one world closes. The compass in her pocket began to spin wildly. Ivy hesitated. But then she remembered the girl in the fog, the warning carved into stone, and the vision of the other coastline, the mirror lighthouse. Her fingers curled around the door's iron ring. She pulled it open. Light, blinding, blue-white, poured out like water. And Ivy stepped through. The light blinded Ivy for a moment, making her stumble as she crossed the threshold. When her eyes adjusted, She found herself standing on the edge of a cliff, but this place was unlike any she'd ever seen. The sky above swirled with colors she couldn't name, deep purples, fiery oranges, and shimmering golds blending like a living painting. Below, the sea stretched out, calm and crystal clear, reflecting the strange sky like a mirror. Behind her, the door had vanished. She was alone, but not for long. From the misty forest at the cliff's edge emerged a figure, the girl in white. Her pale eyes glowed softly in the twilight. "Welcome," she said, her voice echoing like a distant bell. Ivy swallowed her fear. "Where am I?" "This is the world beyond your world," the girl replied. "The place the lighthouse connects to the other side." Ivy glanced back toward the sea, then the cliffs. Far in the distance, she saw another lighthouse, her own, but dark and silent. "How do I get back?" The girl smiled sadly. "The tide must turn. Until then, you are here." Ivy shivered. She felt the pull of her home, but something about this place was magnetic, almost alive. "Why does the lighthouse call me?" The girl stepped closer. "Because you belong to the light, and the light belongs to you." Ivy's heart hammered. "What does that mean?" The girl looked out over the horizon. "It means you must protect the balance between worlds. But beware, the darkness beneath the waves stirs." Before Ivy could ask more, the wind shifted. From the forest's edge, shadows moved, twisted shapes slipping between trees like smoke. The girl's eyes widened. "They're coming." Ivy felt a cold dread settle in her bones. The other side was beautiful, but dangerous. And her journey was just beginning. The shadows slipped closer, their forms shifting like smoke, almost blending into the twilight mist. Ivy stepped back, heart pounding. The girl in white raised her hands, and a soft light shimmered around them, a pale glow that pushed the darkness back. "They are called the Wraiths," the girl explained, her voice steady despite the growing threat. "Lost souls trapped between worlds, twisted by the shadows beneath the sea." Ivy glanced at the forest edge, where the wraiths seemed to gather, their shapes flickering like broken reflections. "Why do they come?" Ivy asked, gripping the flashlight she'd brought with her. "Because they want to break the barrier," the girl said. "If they succeed, both worlds will fall into chaos. The tide will turn, and darkness will swallow everything." A cold wind swept over the cliff, carrying a salty, rotten smell that made Ivy's stomach churn. "We have to stop them," Ivy said, surprising herself with the strength in her voice. The girl nodded. "You will learn to use the light. It's your power now." Ivy looked down at her hands, feeling the faintest warmth pulsing beneath her skin. Suddenly, a wraith lunged from the shadows, a grotesque shape with hollow eyes and stretched limbs. Ivy raised her hands instinctively. A burst of light shot from her palms, striking the wraith and sending it reeling back into the mist with a scream like breaking glass. The girl smiled. "Good, the light answers you." But more shadows pressed forward, and Ivy realized this was only the beginning. The wraiths hesitated, recoiling from the glow radiating from Ivy's hands. She felt a strange warmth spreading through her veins, as if the lighthouse itself was awakening inside her. The girl in white stepped beside her, placing a steady hand on Ivy's shoulder. "You are the beacon now," she said softly. "The bridge between worlds. Your light can heal, protect, and banish the shadows." Ivy nodded, trying to steady her breath. "But how do I control it? How do I know what to do?" The girl smiled, her pale eyes gleaming like stars. "Trust the light. Listen to it." Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled. From the forest, a deep growl rolled out, darker and more terrible than the wraiths. A massive shape emerged, half hidden by the trees, a creature of sea and shadow, with scales that shimmered like oil and eyes burning red. "The Leviathan," the girl whispered, "the guardian of the abyss." Ivy's heart pounded. The creature's gaze locked on her, and the air grew heavy with ancient power. "You must face it," the girl said, "or the balance will be lost forever." Ivy swallowed her fear. With the light glowing brighter in her hands, she stepped forward, ready to confront the darkness that threatened both worlds. Ivy stood her ground as the Leviathan emerged fully from the shadows, its massive form blotting out the strange sky. Its scales shimmered with an oily darkness, and its red eyes burned with ancient fury. The ground shook beneath its weight. The girl in white chanted softly, her voice weaving through the air like a thread of light. Ivy raised her hands, feeling the warmth of the lighthouse's power surge through her. The Leviathan roared, sending a wave of shadow crashing toward Ivy. She lifted her palms, and beams of pure light erupted, cutting through the darkness like blades. The two forces clashed, light and shadow, in a fierce battle that echoed across the cliffs. Ivy focused, calling on the lighthouse's power to protect her, to push back the darkness threatening to consume everything. With a final burst of energy, she struck the Leviathan's heart, and the creature let out a deafening roar before dissolving into mist. The sky cleared, colors brightening as balance returned. The girl in white smiled. "The tide has turned." Ivy felt exhaustion wash over her, but also a deep sense of peace. She had become the beacon, the light between worlds. And her journey was only just beginning. The world around Ivy began to shimmer and blur, the colors of the strange sky fading into the familiar gray mist of Windmere. She found herself standing at the base of the lighthouse, the real one, the one she had left. The door was closed now, but the heavy iron ring felt warm under her hand. The girl in white was gone. But Ivy knew she was still watching, guarding the balance from afar. Her hands still tingled with the power of the light, a reminder of the connection she now carried between the two worlds. As Ivy walked back toward the village, the fog lifted slightly, revealing the familiar shapes of Windmere's cliffs and cottages. Her father waited on the porch, worry etched across his face. She smiled. "There's so much to tell you," she said. And for the first time since her mother's passing, Ivy felt a spark of hope. Back inside the cottage, Ivy sat with her father, sharing the story she barely believed herself of lighthouses, other worlds, shadows, and light. He listened quietly, eyes searching hers. When she finished, he reached out, holding her hand. "You're stronger than you know, Ivy," he said softly. "Your mother would be proud." Outside, the lighthouse beam began its slow rotation once more. But this time, Ivy wasn't afraid. She was ready. Because the light between worlds was inside her. And as long as she carried it, Windmere and both worlds would never be lost to darkness. And so Ivy became the beacon, the guardian of the balance between worlds, carrying a light strong enough to push back the deepest darkness. Her journey was filled with shadows and secrets, but also hope and strength. Thank you for joining me on Michael's Sleep Well. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you won't miss the next adventure. Until next time, sleep well and keep your own light shining bright.